And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to episode number 263 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. I'm just waiting for my trusty cohort, Mick Tully, to come live with me. Most of you know this is an episode we've been trying to put together for 2 or 3 weeks now. All the technological snafus have been pretty much taken care of. So now it's just a matter of Mick signing on and me bringing him in. So as you guys are logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. Mick, as you guys know, Mick is a longtime JKD practitioner. I don't know his exact history before JKD. That's one of the things I'm going to ask him about. But he's certified both by Rick Fay and Sifu Dan and Asano. And of course, I think he's a brown belt now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So as soon as he gets here, we will get things rolling. In the meantime, if you would like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The Jeet Kune Notables coffee mug, also available in garment form, t-shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, sweatshirt, that type of stuff. You can also support the program at paypal.me/unifiedmamiami, paypal.me/unifiedmamiami, and that's where you can get the raw but edited version of the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1. And last but not least, right here on the YouTube Jeet Kune Dialogues channel, you can become a subscriber and member of the channel. Just click on the join link and you will see the different levels of membership available to you. And all that stuff goes towards helping me to continue to provide these most times insightful dialogues and what have you. So, like I said, we're just waiting to see. James Bishop says, we'll see if this happens. I know. The technology we won't be able to blame this time around, James, right? We'll put all the blame on Mick if he doesn't show up. Terry Valor is here. Jerry Winterfell, second time around, right? Russell. Okay. I'm not sure in Wiesbaden, Germany, who is Junfan Kung Fu Institute. I wonder if that's Bill Sang, right? Time to bring out the popcorn and soda. Yeah, Mick's always a good time, right? All right, who else? Okay, let's see who's over on the YouTube. Scorch was here last time. Jeet Kune, Russell Delice. It is Bill. Okay, that's what I thought. I knew I wasn't losing my mind. All right, so where is Mick Tully? Hopefully not getting himself in trouble with anything, right? So okay, so let me fill for a second, and here are people that in the midst of scheduling to come onto the dialogues. Not in any particular order. It all depends on when they're able to confirm stuff with me. But Mick Shore is on deck. Chris Kent, Michael Van Beek, Ryan Ohl, Diana Inosano. She and I met up last week when I was in LA, and literally Ron Goldstein and I are we're just finishing up, or we're just starting breakfast, and I see two people walking up the stairs to the restaurant. It turned out to be Ron Balicki and Diana Inosano. So that was quite the coincidence. So she'll be on. Um, who else? While I was at camp, at CLAC camp, I met a couple of people that I knew of, and then some people that I had not seen in forever. And so I do have some people in mind to come onto the show. Glenn Boudry is one of them. There's a group that I call the IAMA BBC, and so we'll see if we can do something with them. Steve Braun, who is someone that I have known of for as long as I've been with Sifu Nasano, I'm pretty sure. Met with him, met Tim Ferriss there. Who else? Who else did I meet? I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm doing this from I'm trying to do this from memory. But yeah, but those are people who are um, on deck to come onto the show. All right. So Russell says if Mick's not here, yeah, Mick Tully, come on, man. If he's not here, he must be in Facebook jail. Yeah, I saw something from somebody else that said that he is in Facebook jail. Also, he keeps getting muted or something, and just for telling the truth. And I was like, okay, so Mick, Mick says he's here, wondering, of course, if he beat Terry Valor. Mick, you got to click the link that I sent you so that I can bring you on to the feed. So get to your Facebook Messenger and click that link. He is a big tease, isn't he? In fact, when he gets here, when Mick gets here, we got to have him. Let's see. Do I have it? Yeah, there we go. Man, how do you guys get yourselves in Facebook jail? You must be commenting on a lot of topical stuff. Me, I just stick to the martial arts stuff. So when Mick gets here, we got to have him explain this. If you guys can see this rock star photo. Um, all right, who else has joined us? Hey, Lance Lamont and Jamie Ditzler. Okay, good, cool. All right, a lot of you guys were on with Bert Richardson. Yeah, that was a fast moving conversation that Bert and I just had. And unfortunately, he was able to squeeze me in between classes and lessons and what have you. But we're definitely going to have him back. I thought of a whole bunch of other questions that as he was talking about stuff. Don't hate the player, hate the game. All right. Um, I know Mick he is on Facebook, so I'm not sure what what's holding him up. Okay, I'm not sure. Mick, I'm not sure what "been here" means. You got to look in your Facebook Messenger and you got to click the Be Live link that I sent you in order to get into the feed. Phantom of the Dialogues. That's a good one, Jerry. All right, guys, stand by 1 second. Okay.
I'm here.
Thank God.
Thank God. So sorry, brother. So sorry.
That's all right. Can you see the picture that I put up?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, there's a good story behind that. There's a really
Yeah.
good story behind.
Okay, let's just jump right into it. You rock star, you.
Yes, but I'll tell you what. Let me just get my ear pods in so that I can hear
Okay.
you better. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yeah. Mick Tully is not a hot mess at all, is he? Jamie says it's a great pick. It is, yeah. I can't wait to hear the story behind this. This is gonna be good.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Oh, perfect, perfect. All right, this story's pretty cool. Well, hi everybody. I should say before we start, apologies to everyone who tuned in. Um, you know what I'm going to say now, Dwight. I know that Richard Torres was behind this all. I'm telling you. I tell you that what that guy did. I took the Mickey out of his Ted Wong haircut once, just once. I just mentioned the fact that Ted Wong wanted his haircut back, and ever since that, he's never forgiven me. But we'll talk about that later. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Your volume is a
everybody,
little bit low, Mitt. Can you raise your volume a little bit?
I can go as high as you want. How's that? Is that
Um,
better?
yeah,
How's
a little
that?
bit.
Any better?
Yeah, that's good. That sounds good.
All right, 1 second. Give me a moment because
Yeah.
I'm just going to open over the doors. I don't want the wife to hear me. 1 second, guys. How's that? There we are. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, see,
Okay.
I don't trust you young people and your Bluetooth AirPods and what have you. Not me, man. I'm an
No,
analog guy, all
same,
wires
man.
and everything.
When you wired up, it's still the best. It's still the best.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. Yeah, no, so now you've got an echo as well. Did you hear
All
me
right.
okay? Did you hear me okay before you put the pods in? Switch back and see.
How's that? Dwight, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, well, in that case, you see this? This is the ghost of Steve Jobs, man. We're going to say goodbye to that
Ah,
guy now, put him away. Yeah, no worries.
yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to look cool, man. I was I did. Yeah. Right. So here's the story. The story behind that is really, really interesting. Years ago, we used to have a there was a big it was like a big martial arts expo back in the
Mhm,
day, you know, when people were into martial arts and not just the UFC. So you'd
mhm.
go and you'd see these really cool things. You'd see martial arts you were never really interested in, but you'd meet cool people, and some of it was cosplay, but some of it was like pretty good. So of course, it's the biggest one. It was ran by two friends of mine, Joe Long and Paul Alderson, who they now own the UFC gym franchise in the UK. But this was
Okay.
a huge deal at the time, and I taught a seminar down there. And you'll like this, Dwight. This is one of my claim to fames, right? I opened and closed the seminars. So I was the first guy to do the seminar, and I was the last guy to do the seminar. But there was a couple of different seminars all going on at the same time. And it was an old scoundrel who's passed away now, a guy called Tony Pillage. A couple of the UK guys will know him. He was an absolute charlatan and a rogue and a rascal. And he was awful at martial arts. God bless his soul. You know, I hope he's in heaven, but I think he's listening to ACDC, the life he lived, right? But he put me forward for for this series of seminars. And my
Mhm.
claim to fame is I had 68 people on my seminar, and Hoist Gracie had 13 on his at the same time. Yeah, yeah. So I was just telling dirty jokes and stuff, really, and bad martial arts. But the situation here with this picture is really cool because after I'd done the seminars, after I'd done the first seminar, I was told to be on my best behavior, don't drink any beer or anything. And I was like, well, I'm not going to drink any beer. I'm teaching another seminar at like 5:30. But I'm quite an old fogey, so I understand that energy drinks give you energy, right? What I
Uh,
didn't realise that was flirting with the promotion girls and drinking copious amounts of energy drinks would actually affect everything about me. And I literally, well, let's put it this way: I was excitable to say the least, and I'm pretty bad anyway. But I drank six of those Rockstar energy drinks in
yeah.
one go. Yeah, and
Ah,
I wouldn't advise it. It's
no.
one of those things that you think is a great idea at the time. But yeah, so when I the reason I got that picture was I was 4 energy drinks in, and obviously I'm a happily married man, but I'm terrible for flirting with ladies. So I was flirting with these two promotion girls, and one of them says, "Oh, you're so funny. You remind me of my dad." And it was at that point, Dwight, I realised
Yep.
I was actually an older man. So
Yep.
yeah, it was one of that. But I should warn you, I'm decompressing. By the way, I forgot all about the thing. This is a Polish beer. It's an absolute savage beer. But I've just been doing jiu-jitsu for 90 minutes. And the only way I can actually sleep after this is a competition class. So I'm rolling with guys. Every single one of them is 20 years younger than me in the room.
Right.
And the only way, you know, it's that whole where you access the inner madman in you
Yeah.
to roll. And then you get home and you're like, I've got to decompress. So I always drink this fine beverage. But you could run a car off this, Dwight. Trust me, this has got the only thing it's missing for the American guys is a brown paper bag on the outside of it. It's the sort of thing you drink at Vegas, drink
Mick,
in Vegas, fourth day in.
Mick, what are you doing? What are you doing in a competition jujitsu class on a Friday
Because
night? Are you crazy?
no, I'm not. What it is, I might as well get serious on this. You've just come back from Silat class, right? Silat
Yeah,
camp,
yeah,
right? So you spent a couple of days in the company of like the legend himself, Guru Danino Santo, yeah.
yeah.
And Guru's got that whole thing where he says, as you get older, you have this. Oh look, ouch. That's from today. So
Mhm.
Guru says you've got two ways of you know meeting old age. And he says, and what comes after all that? And he says, you can go, or you
Mhm.
can go, yeah. And
Right.
he says that he likes to go for the latter, that it's going to be a slow decline in.
Yeah.
And I remember years ago, I saw him at a seminar and we were chatting, and he showed me footage. It was myself and Terry Barnett. He showed us footage of him training with Omri. And it was 20 rounds a week on the pads. And after the fourth round of watching it, I actually said to Guru, who showed me on the iPad, and I said, Guru, I'm tired watching this, let
Yeah.
alone doing this. But his example is you've got to follow it. I'm
Mhm.
54, still compete, still enjoy jiu-jitsu, still able to do it. So until I'm able to do that, and the other one as well, I think you'll appreciate this, Dwight. In the JKD community, there's two camps. There's people who follow Daniel Santo, and then people who pretend they train. Right, but I have to be diplomatic here, because Taki Kimura and Andy Kimura's group, amazing, yeah, and they do exactly what it says on the tin. They exactly get it. Whereas everyone else, I don't know, they seem to argue all the time about what does work and what doesn't work.
Right.
Um, and then obviously in the concepts world that we've got, we know it's like you don't have to do Thai boxing, you don't have to do wrestling, you don't have to do CSW, you don't have to do jiu-jitsu,
Mhm.
but it's there for you if you want to do it. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't suit your personality, then great.
Yeah.
But don't knock people, and certainly don't say that. I'm going to be controversial here. Please don't say that your BUG is going to work against somebody trying to hit you with a double leg takedown who's 30 years younger than you.
Right.
Physics works, and the aging process gets all of us. So the reason I'm still at it is because until I'm not able to do it, which will be a sad day, Dwight.
Mhm.
Yourself, as you get
Yeah.
older, that bit where you have to come to the realization you're not able to do it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm Irish Catholic and a middle child. I'm not going to come to that realization in a good way. So until that point, I'm going to keep on doing the Ernest Hemingway thing here. You know what I mean? And
I
just
hear you. Yeah. I was
keeping
I
on.
was
Yeah,
at one point in camp, I was just watching Inosano talk, and I thought to myself, this is so glorious. I mean, even 40 years into it, right? I'm like, this is so special. It really is. And then at one point, he's showing something and he drops into this deep squat. And I'm like, Inosano, you're 87. Hang on a second, man. You're making me look bad.
yeah. but believe it or not, I only had a conversation today with a friend of mine who is, I'll give him a shout out, Ant McGinley. I'll have to send him a link to this. He's a really good friend of mine. He for the first incarnation of all my podcasts, he was the main guy behind it. He was a big time DJ in the UK on like radio and stuff. Came
Mhm.
to me for martial arts, and he was going through a rough time. And where people say, I just want to hit something, I just want, and I'm like, my very, very basic understanding of human psychology is when people say that, I won't allow them to do it. I say, oh, right, okay. Because they want to externalize the rage and I don't know, do some alpha male bullshit. I don't know. So what I did was I made him grapple with me for 6 months because, he wanted to be this masterless samurai Ronin character,
Mhm.
like be in some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of like psychological version of Tatooine. He wanted to be right out on the outer rim and not interact with people. And sorry, you have to interact with human beings when you do it. But anyway, he, of all things, he picked up a back injury doing trampolining. And he was talking to me. He said, "Oh man, it's really bad and everything." And I said, listen, man, it's like Guru Dan says, he goes, the problem is comfort kills us. Yeah, we weren't built to have a sedentary lifestyle. I said, have you ever seen that guy where he squats down? And, you know, I always like, when you were saying about Guru doing silat, the one thing I always love is, you know, when he starts telling the story about the summer that he worked, like sharecropping with all the old Filipinos in the field. And he said, we all started at the same spot and it got to midday and there, I can't see them. They're all the way right down there. And he goes, I haven't even gone 200 meters or 200 yards, he said. And he said, and they're on then, and he said, they're just on their knees all day and they're walking. And he said, all of these unusual positions are really good and holistic. And I got with Silat, it always makes me smile because people knock Silat right? And they go, well, I don't know if it'll work in the real world. First of all, martial arts nowadays, we don't have the luxury of when me and you, well, obviously you're only very slightly older than me, Dwight. But yeah, I started training in 85. And martial arts then was you were training for a fight against a guy who couldn't fight. He was angry, And now the new generation that's coming through, these guys have had 30 years of exposure to MMA. They know how to do an armbar. They know how to shoot for a double leg. They know how to do a Kimura. They know how to check
and they're learning it. They're learning it from the internet. They're not even studying in school.
Don't need to. And then the only thing is they need to be lucky. And so I said to my man, and today I was like, it's like Guru said. He goes, half the stuff that I do. This is I'd like your thoughts on this. You know, when people knock Guru about doing Sistema. And Guru was like, it's the motion. And that's what I believe that was Silat as well. Don't get me wrong. Mal Morny, I will take the Pepsi challenge with anyone. I will put Master Mal Morny up against nearly anybody on the planet when it comes to fighting. Because nobody can move that well and look that destructive and not be able to go. Right? But I think it's the way that the Silat and the way they move. I really believe it's very enlightening. And I know it's going to make me sound dead woo-woo, man, you know, and I know you've just been to California, so you'll understand my hip speak that I'm going to say here. But I believe it's very enriching for the soul, you know. So when I see people do Sistema and I see them do Silat, I just see the way that their body moves, and I look at it, and I know this sounds really like weird, but I just think it's like a physical embodiment of like behavioral flexibility. Because I've never met a Silat guy or a Sistema guy that wasn't open to go, yeah, let's have some dialogue over here. You know, when you talk to them on that sort of level. And again, it's with Guru Dan, man. Well, I don't know about geniuses, but I know he's one.
Right. Yeah. Well, Bert Richardson was just on, and I don't know if you remember Bert back in the old days.
Oh, the man.
Right. You know, I mean, doing like the Sempak and the Depak, the cross step thing into the low, the right, which he can still do. From what I understand, he can still do. Yeah. The funny thing is, I called one of my old students, and by old I mean former students, because he turned 29 today.
Ouch.
Now, yeah, he turned 29 today. Now, I've known him for. No, wait, is it 29? So I have a 29 or 31. So I've known him since he was 4 years old, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And he was telling me, and he actually said, now that he's getting old, because he's been, he's like a professional runner, you know, so this is a guy that does 100-mile weeks and what have you. And he's talking about being at his physiotherapist. And he's saying that as he was growing and training with me, he knows for a fact that it was the martial art training that kept him injury-free when it came to running.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Well, you see, it's funny you mentioned Bert, because obviously he's on my list of one of the only guys that it's a bit funny because he's one of the only guys that I really, really want to interview, for the simple reason that when I first started doing martial arts and I read, like I was a vociferous reader, I would read every single magazine that came out, I'd read them. Every single book, I'd read them, you know, so like even the really awful ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to really love the Burt Offerings. Do you remember he had the Burt Offerings
His
column?
magazine column. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. And it's funny because he's had some real health issues recently. But the thing is with Bert, a lot of people don't understand about Bert. Like, yeah, as I said, I've never met him, but I know so much about him. You know, he was one of the original Dog Brothers. He
Mm-hmm.
was like Chris Lieben's coach. So he was like, so he's been that guy who's been on both ends of the spectrum
Yeah.
when it comes to martial arts. And I truly believe, like the same as Greg Nelson, I truly believe that I don't think they would have done as well against their health issues if it hadn't been for the martial arts. Because at one stage, I think Greg Nelson was one of like 4 people on the planet who'd had that cancer
Mm-hmm.
and survived. But you
Yeah.
know, when you've met Greg, yeah,
Right.
sorry, cancer, not today, Satan. You're not going to get it, man.
Yeah.
He'll
Yeah.
fight it. Like I really I really think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realise that the kicking ass part is like nothing in like in regards to what else we get out of this mentally, physically, emotionally. I know that makes me. You think you're back in LA, man, don't you? You're listening to me. Yeah, we're gonna go and grab some. We're gonna go and grab some vegan tofu in a minute.
Yeah. Talking about our colleagues who have survived these horrendous health issues. I took my training partner Ron Goldstein. We left Inasano Thursday evening, and jumped
Right.
in the LA traffic, the 5 p.m. LA traffic, and went into the valley because I wanted him to meet Cass Magda. Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And Cass's wife Eleanor, she's another one who went through some horrendous cancer stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and rare, unique stuff, kind of like Greg Nelson, and beat it, literally.
Well,
So
well, you see, Dwight. You see, this is the thing. It's like, when I teach children, I'm going to sound way too philosophical here now, but when I teach children, I always come out with stuff like, man, I'm like a fortune cookie with a beard. Some of the shit that I come out with to these kids is unreal. But I always say to them, do you want to be ordinary or do you want to be extraordinary? And I want to be extraordinary. And I went, right, okay, all you need to do is extra. So it's a very simplistic way of saying it. And then I always say to them, do you want to be tough or do you want to be smart? And they always say smart. And I go, because when you're smart, you can learn to be tough. And then I always say to them, you don't realize I'm not teaching you martial arts. I'm teaching you how to fall in love with learning stuff. And once you learn, that's it. And then when we get to the point where we're actually challenging, the whole, competition's competition. But it's that whole thing where, so I'm actually wearing my man's t-shirt today. I don't know if you can see it. Teddy Roosevelt learning jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
nice one.
Yeah, Teddy's a hero of mine anyway. Yeah, he's a as they say nowadays on Twitter, he's a problematic individual. But no, like I don't know. I think he just had an opinion and stuck to it. But anyway, it's like Teddy's. It's not the critic that counts, and he says, he feels sorry for those timid souls that don't know win or loss, and that gets us back to the cancer thing. Like you just treat it like any other fight you've ever had, Dwight. And a lot of people, unfortunately, comfort will kill us all. And embrace the adversity, winners and learners, And I think that's one of the reasons why people, especially in the martial arts community, when they've had cancer and they've had a good chance of fighting it, you're not going to roll over, are you? You're going to go at least try and fight it. So it's been good. So if you don't mind me asking, I'm going to turn the tables on you for a minute. What was it like getting back into the academy? Because was this the first time back after COVID?
No, so a group of us had gone out in September of 2021, October of 2021. So it wasn't that long ago. But even back then, you had to be vaccinated in order to get in, or what have you, and you had to wear a mask. Now the mask is optional, but it's California, so there's an inordinate amount of people still wearing the mask, right? Right. So yeah, but it's still a heck of an experience to just be there.
And
You
he's
know.
like literally, as I said, I've been a fanboy. I've been a fanboy of Danny Santo before I
Yeah.
ever met.
Yeah.
As I said, he's a visionary. And like
Yeah.
the one thing that always gets me, it's why it irks me. Guys who are watching, they'll know this. There's only certain things that will really get me. You can say anything about me, say anything about my wife, I'll kill you. But but the thing is, when it comes to Guru Dan, it's Bruce. This is the thing. I think if Bruce Lee had lived, I've got a sneaky feeling Jeet Kune might have ended up being Taibo or something very similar to that, right? If it hadn't been for Guru Dan, it would have disappeared.
Oh, for sure.
It really, there was those years. So he's one of the only people I've ever met that I look at it. Well, the only I should say this: both him and Terry Barnett, they're about the only two people I've ever met where I've looked at them and go, they're the only people I'd want to be if I couldn't be me. So I don't want to sound like a narcissistic bastard, but I love being me, Dwight. You know what I mean? But I can't be anyone else anywhere, so I might as well embrace it. But like with Danny Santo, it's always surprised me because people who don't know him or don't train under him will say, oh, all of you guys are just followers. You're blind followers, right? And I'm like, have you ever met Rick Young? Have you ever met Bob Breen? Have you ever met Phil Norman? Have you ever met Greg Nelson? Have you ever met Rick Fay? Those guys wouldn't follow anybody unless he was a genius, right? That's right. And the list is endless. I'm only naming a very small amount of guys.
Right.
But it's so interesting that people, I saw it the minute I met him. I knew, and it was like, I've used this line a few times. I remember the first time I met Guru Dan, and it was down at Bob Breen was hosting him, and I was in the restroom, as you guys would say. I was in the toilet, and as I was coming out of the toilet, Guru Dan was coming in, and I just went, and I was just like a rabbit caught in the headlights. And everyone was saying, what did you say to him? And I went, you have to remember, it's like Bono came out with this great line once. He said, when he first met Nelson Mandela, they said, what did you say to him? Bono, what did you say? And he said, no matter what I would say to Nelson Mandela would be anywhere as interesting as what he would say to me. And that was exactly the thing. Like, he just said, excuse me, sir, how are you doing? And that was it. Like, and then obviously over the years, I really mean this. I don't know many of us who actually really know Guru Dan that well. Just for the simple reason he's been so big an inspiration to all of us that nearly all of us become a little bit starstruck around him, and the thing is, it's like when you watch him, I don't think I've ever seen anybody able to hold 300 people wrapped, like just listening to him, the way that he, I've got three sons and all three of them are teachers. The two eldest are historians, and Guru Dan's the only person I've met, bar those two, that when we start talking about history, that I'm just like enthralled by it. It's like it's just such a great communicator, just a great human. He's just awesome, And then I see guys knocking him, and then I'm like, right, okay, sorry, but you're getting both barrels here now, because you don't see greatness. Sorry, I'm gonna have to say something.
Yeah, and very, very often the people who knock in Asano are people who couldn't hack it. Like they didn't have the requisite mindset, right, to really understand what somebody like Inasano is talking about and where he's coming from. And so they resort to trying to belittle him as if.
But you see, the thing is, it's very interesting because most of these guys, if you dig, like the beauty of the internet now is, and the beauty of having a very extensive library of martial arts magazines, which I still have, is every now and again you see one guy detract it, and I'm like, I'm convinced I read, because I'm a bit, I'm not even a bit. I'm very OCD and I'm very ADHD. So of course, most martial artists, right? Come on, Dwight, think about it. Why would you throw 10,000 round kicks? Yeah, you look at it now. You look at it now. Bruce Lee's. I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 techniques. I know that. I fear the man who's thrown one kick 10,000 times. And I'm like, that sounds like the sort of guy I want to go to Vegas with, who counts cards. You know what I mean? This sounds like the badass autistic dude ever, right?
Yeah.
But most of us in martial arts, we are fixated. There's a lot of I know, especially me. I was a very broken person getting into it. Yeah, it's been like, I'm evangelical about this. This has saved me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that like every real authentic relationship I've got is either through martial arts, and if it wasn't through martial arts, I got them into martial arts. Right. Because I was like, trust me, it's just me, a couple of my mates hitting each other with sticks or pretending to, or rolling around the floor wearing pajamas or kicking Thai pads.
Yeah.
And it's been, it's been an amazing ride.
With me, there was a guy I spoke to today. There's another guy who trained with me back in the 90s and then moved out west. And I am amazed and humbled when they tell me how much the time they spent with me helped them to become who they are. You know, because I'm thinking, well, I was just showing you Paksao Lapsao, you know.
I was just being me. Yeah, but you see, this is the thing. I'd like to ask you this, right? So when you were younger, right, you know, it's the classic trope of martial arts, right? The young man goes into martial arts. It's why they can't make any good martial arts movies anymore, because there's no more Mr. Miyagi's anymore. So the thing is, now they don't need Mr. Miyagi, they just need YouTube. You know, so the classic trope used to be the young, directionless young man or young woman looking for that older sage. Like I always say that like, I love the Sifu term, because it's not you're not old enough to be the dad, but you're like a really cool older brother. So all of the mistakes that you made were only about 15 years ago, so they're still quite relevant, and I'm able to do this, right? But when you got into martial arts, Dwight, were you looking for that sage teacher, you know, worldly wise individual that could steer you on the right path?
No, I was after the physical movement.
Right.
Okay, that was me. I was after the physical movement. And when so you know, I see Bruce Lee. Mick, I gotta ask you two things. One, how did you know that my intention was to have us co-interview each other?
Yeah. How?
Yeah. How did you know that?
Well, it's quite simple, because the thing is, first of all, both of us are fascinated by other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I really like, again, it's one of the reasons why I can't go on Twitter, because I hate that one-sided rhetoric bullshit. What I like to do is I like to hear another person's opinion, and if I think it's shit and I like them, I'll be very magnanimous about it, and that's an interesting point. If I don't like them, I'll challenge it. But the thing is, it's like, if you want to know how I know, it's quite simple. Whether or not by design or just by happenstance or by accident, Guru and Santos created this culture where once you've, I don't want to say proved, but once you've been around long enough that people realize that you're not a douchebag, it's almost like there's this equality thing that comes in, where you look at it and we go, right, okay, I can't be a Rick Young, I can't be a Bob Breen, I can't be a Greg Nelson, but I can be an exceptional Mick Tully. And just by being that is enough. So the thing is, there's a real parity. So like Dwight, there's no way that you would just ask me questions and me just sit back and go, no, Dwight, I want your opinion on it. You know, again, this is it's one of the reasons why I have to use LA as an example. Because nearly everybody there, and no, everybody there, they're cool. To me, they're cool. Bit flaky, but they're cool. Would their worldview work in the rest of the world? Unfortunately, I don't think it would do, because unfortunately, the rest of the world, we have to put up with other people's shit. You know, whereas we can't drop this. I don't want, you know, I don't know. I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's, you know, it's like George Bush. We don't negotiate with terrorists. And you're like, do if they've got oil. But anyway, that's a different line. But yeah, you understand what I mean, right? So it's the whole thing with us. It's like, why wouldn't I want to know your opinion on it just as much as me? Because I know all of my opinions already.
Right.
You know, I've spent. This is the problem when you read far too much philosophy and you're a drywall contractor. You stare at walls all day long.
Yeah. Well, see. So I think, right. I think a lot of people are lucky that you make a lot of jokes, because they wouldn't be able to handle you if you got 100% serious on them.
Oh, definitely. But you see, this is the thing. It's like, Dwight, people don't understand. I don't want to sound like a poor man's Jordan Peterson here, but this is why the court jester and the comedian, like the court jester in royal court, was very, very important, because he was the only guy that could actually tell the truth to the monarch, to the king, because he'd dress it up in a joke. But you know, it's like the bard said, many a true word said in jest. And the thing is with me, I've told a few people when we start, you know, obviously I'm Irish and I'm Catholic and I've drank a few beers over the years. So I've been in a boozer, you know, in a pub with guys, and we start having a conversation. I said, I should warn you right now, my friend, I'm quite a well-read individual, and I'm going to make you look like you'll be begging for me to hit you with a right hand. Because we start talking. I'm like, sorry,
right.
I'll tell you all about your repressed homosexuality and your problem that you've got with your father. And they go, what are you on about? And I'm like, sorry, I'm quite a smart individual. But the beauty is, knowing that means that you shouldn't take yourself seriously. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm quite well read. I think my children are really smart. But then again, isn't that what all martial artists should do? I look at my kids the same way that I look at my students. They should be much better than me. Yes. My father, Dwight, was an illiterate Irish plasterer, and now he's got 3 sons who are teachers. 2 of them are heads of their own faculties, and they're all under 30. Sorry, mate, but guess what? I think we've done all right here. But that's down to me and my wife. My wife's a very calming influence. My wife is the yin to my yang, man. Yeah, my wife's a really cool character. Yeah. Right. I'm one of those sad men that actually likes their wife. Not just loves their wife, but actually likes them as a person. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's like my friend G. Anthony Joseph. I mean, his wife had to go home to Trinidad for a couple of weeks, and he was almost lost without her. You know, right? It's
that's when you know, man. I believe it or not, I only watched. I finished work early today, and I had to go to this is when you know you're getting old, right? So I need a bath before I go training, get some heat into the right. So of course, I jump on Netflix and I can watch anything. Normally it's true crime or conspiracy theory stuff, but I just put on Good Will Hunting again, because every now and again I just need to get that. You've seen it, right? Good Will Hunting. Yeah. So I'm watching it, and it's like, I think it's Robin Williams' best ever performance. But it's that whole point where he turns around and goes, if you're lucky, you just meet someone once that completes you. And you're like, and trust me, I'm the most unromantic man on the planet. I am like a mass. Like, I always tell my wife that I'm a Ronin. I tell her I'm not. I'm like David Carradine without the going to Hong Kong and dying in the cupboard. You know what I mean? In the closet, right? But no, I'm like this masterless samurai. I walk the earth, do my own thing. But no, I'm not. Apparently, I seem to be like I'm a pretty normal man, you know. What was the second question that you were going to ask me?
No, I just did say it.
Right.
The thing about it's a good thing that most times you're making jokes, because otherwise, right? But here's the other thing I want to talk about,
Yeah.
because when 3 weeks ago, when we were trying to do this, I think you had posted something about something from artificial intelligence or what have you, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, okay, let me try to get Mick on the show. And I went to Chat GPT and I put in stuff about you, and then I asked it to give me a title for the podcast. And the title it came up with was The Evolution of Jeet Kune with Mick Tully,
Yeah.
right? Okay. But listen to this, right? But then I thought, okay, because everybody keeps talking about how AI is going to take over. And
Yeah.
I'm not so sure yet. I'm not so sure, because I was just reading something by Bob Bly. He's a New Jersey copywriter, and in the marketing world, I think it's the copywriters who probably have the greatest fear of AI
Yeah.
coming and taking their jobs, right?
Yeah.
But he was pointing out, he says it's like a 5-round fight with AI and copywriting, and he's not of the opinion that it can do it. So let me read to you. I went to AI and I said, okay, I'm interviewing Mick Tully, and I gave him as much background as I could and what have you. Right? You ready for
Yeah.
this?
Do it.
I'm gonna read for you the 10 questions that AI suggested I ask you. Okay? Right?
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Number one, how did you first get introduced to Jeet Kune? Can you tell us about your experience training under Rick Fay and Dan Asano? What inspired you to become a Jeet Kune instructor? How do you approach teaching Jeet Kune to your students? Can you explain the philosophy behind Jeet Kune? What role does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu play in your martial art training? In your opinion, what sets Jeet Kune apart from other martial arts? How do you stay current with the latest developments in the world of martial arts? Can you talk about any challenges you faced as a Jeet Kune instructor? What advice would you give to someone who wants to start learning Jeet Kune? Right now, they're not terrible questions, but
No.
they're so run of the mill. They so lack personality. You know,
Yeah.
now I can take them and I can turn them into something a little bit more substantial, you know, but it I think that this artificial intelligence really does show that it's artificial.
Now, now, here is serendipity, right? So we just mentioned Good Will Hunting, right? So there's that classic scene where Will Hunting, so Matt Damon's there, by the way, trained at the Santo Academy, as you well know, right? For the Bourne movies with Jeff Amada. So he's there and he's looking at all the books, and it's very, very good because he's with George Plimpton at one stage, who's like this literary genius, and he goes in there and he just it's the classic, no more tomfoolery, no more ballyhoo. So he does all of that crap, right? And he goes, yeah, and then he goes down that route and he just wastes this guy. So it's at that point that you realise that this guy, so Matt Damon's character, is not to be messed with. This guy is wicked smart, as they say in Boston, right? So this guy's wicked smart.
Yep.
So then he goes in and he meets, Robin Williams' character, Sean Maguire. So he meets him and he looks at one picture. So he looks at this picture and he, as Robin Williams quite rightly says, he says, you look at a picture and you rip my fucking life apart, right? And it was the reason I'm saying this is that moment where Robin Williams, he comes out, he meets him and they bring him down and they look at the swans and Matt Damon's character's going, all right, is this like analogous, of life, everything's serene on the top and underneath they're losing their fucking minds. And he just starts talking, and it's just as I said, I've only just watched the scene, so it's still fresh in my mind. So it's just beautiful because the camera's first on Robin Williams, and Robin Williams starts talking about, you know, you're a young kid, you're an angry kid, maybe you got laid a couple of times, and then he starts to ask you about war, you'll start walking about. You start to talk about love, you'll do this, you'll maybe quote me a sonnet. He said, but if I ask you what it smells like in a Sistine Chapel, you can't tell me. And it's that point where it's like, sorry, mate, but guess what? The human experience will always trump.
Right.
Always trump, because guess what? Experience is everything. Like, you can have all of the information in the world, but it's like, I made a joke about Hemingway earlier. It's like, when you're younger, Hemingway came out with this great line. He said, people say you shouldn't have heroes. I believe men should have heroes. And as you get older, I think it's really important that you have heroes. So Hemingway's been a hero of mine for years. He liberated the Paris Hilton. You know what I mean? He liberated the Paris Hilton. When the fucking Allies turned up, they said, oh, we're here. And he goes, you're 21 martinis late. Because what he'd done was he drank 21 martinis by the time they had arrived. I think it's 21, maybe 23. But anyway, when Hemingway, famously took, by the way, I should say, wicked writer, inspirational character, the Old Man in the Sea, For Whom the Bell Tolls, they're just literary classics, right? But the thing is with Hemingway, was he a great father? No. Was he a great human being? Probably not. Right. But the one thing, as I've got older, the one thing that I do respect him for is the minute he realised he wasn't Ernest Hemingway anymore, guess what he did? He munched on a 12 ball. You know what I mean? That's what he did, because he was like, I can't live with being anything but what I am. And that goes to the AI thing, because they'll never understand the human experience. At the moment, what I'm watching, it's funny you're saying this, because I had this conversation again with the guy about the trampolining, the guy, Ant McGinley. I spoke to him today, and he was saying, man, did you go on that AI thing, because he's been typing in random words and then getting this great, it's the AI that does all the visual stuff, the paintings and stuff.
Yeah.
So my good friend, John Will, you need to get that guy on your show. He's amazing. He was one of the Dirty Dozen, one of the first non-Brazilian black belts. So John's really embraced AI. So what he's done is he's making all this amazing artwork all through AI, and it's unreal. And I spoke to him about it, and he said, oh, it's a great tool. And I was saying to him, I'm looking at it now, and the parallels, the beauty of getting older is nothing's new. As you well know, at the moment you see all this friction in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community. We had it in Jeet Kune, they had it in karate. Nothing changes. People are the same shit, right? So of course, I said to him about AI, because we were talking about how everyone's going crazy, and I'm like, they're just Luddites, mate. They're just guys smashing up looms. It's like Captain Swing. They're going, oh, they're coming to take our jobs. No, we're just going to have to rethink it. It's going to be a long time before a chat it is quite funny, because I like your take on it. It's like, so are they going to take our jobs? Yeah, if you work in a call center, it's probably going to take your job, because those chat bots have probably got more personality than most of the people working call center. Up your game. But the AI thing's really interesting, because we live, as the Chinese say, I hope you live in interesting times, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever think for a second that you were contemplating killing your next door neighbor for a jar of pickles, right? Because guess what? During lockdown, I thought about it, and I don't even like pickles. But no, it's that whole thing where, it's that thing where it's like, I thought we were going to up our game. I really did. I thought we were going to, show the best of us. And we didn't. In the UK guys will know this. We started arguing over toilet roll. Yeah, that was the big thing, and it just showed us. I've been saying this for a few years, since 2008, when we had the credit crunch. I was just so happy that most of the populace are moronic, And they're more interested in the Kardashians than anything else, because if they'd known how close we were to the precipice of everything collapsing, because you know yourself, economics is just a Ponzi scheme. You know, we're literally on a real tightrope here, yeah?
Yeah.
And people just were like, okay. And then we had the COVID thing, which was a real threat. I don't care what anyone says. That was a real threat. And I make a joke about it now because I'm like, man, how hungry was that Chinese dude to eat a bat? But I don't know about you, Dwight, right? But I've been hungry, right? But the bat
But
thing,
not that hungry. Right.
it's a rat with wings. But yeah,
Yeah.
the AI thing is very, very interesting, man. I like, as I say, the evolution of just us as a species, man. I don't know. Like, what's your take on it? Like, you've come back from. I always say this about LA. LA is like Logan's Run. Yeah, like years ago, it was like a futuristic utopia. Now it's a bit more Mad Max. You know what I mean? The good one, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, not the good one with Mel Gibson. You know, before he started going crazy, obviously. But
I just watched him in this Canadian production called Bandit. Have you seen that?
no,
Yeah, I think it's like a retelling. It's based on a true story of this guy in Canada who went around robbing like almost 60. He did like almost 60 bank capers. Right.
wow,
I watched it on the plane, which is something I very, very seldom do. But here's the thing about LA. I find myself in LA. Everybody that I see, I find myself thinking that we're sitting having breakfast, right? And I can hear a little bit of the conversation at the table next to us. And it's two guys, and one's talking about producing something and the studio, this and whatever, right? And I'm just thinking, all around us are people who either wish they were in the Hollywood business, you know, or are in one of the Hollywood businesses or what have you. I mean, I got there, and immediately they thought I was a reggae music producer or that I played in the band.
definitely,
Right? You know,
yeah.
right? And so I think that it seems as if, in spite of everything, generally and overall, LA is still plastic.
Yeah, but again,
You
this is
know,
the crazy thing. It's like, Dwight, we shouldn't be there. You know, again, it's Joe Rogan. It's like, again, Rogan's a problematic individual, but guess what? I'd be problematic if I could have his money. You know, like the thing is with Rogan, he came out with this line. He says, "There's no water, there's nothing there at all."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but you know, I don't know if I ever told you. I had the opportunity to interview Arnold Schwarzenegger of all people, right?
Really?
So he was doing an audience with, right, and we got the kibosh in the end. But I had to work out that I was there all night. I was like, we were doing some work for a company. I'll give them a shout out, Olexi. So they do this an audience with, right? So what it is, you go there, it's a dinner, you sit down and you listen to a conversation at the end between, normally it's like a chicken in a basket celebrity, like a Z-list celebrity got in England, interviewing. So the first one I did was with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So I did it with Van Damme, and he was just, well, he was everything you would expect a burnt-out action movie star from Brussels to be. He was out of his mind on cocaine. He was like, he started talking about, he's had this multimedia thing that was going. It sounded really good, by the way. I'd say, I don't know, like, Dwight, we've been around the block a little bit. So, you know, when you go to a party and it's like 2:30, 3:00 in the morning, and people just start talking the most random, crazy, like, you know, shit that Eddie Bravo would hear and walk out the door. Like, it'd be like, oh man, I'm getting out of here, right? So, of course, yeah, it's like, normally it's stuff like years ago, before the Marvel movie, it's like, who'd win in a fight between the Hulk and, you know, the Thing, you know, stuff like that.
Mm.
And Van Damme started going on about this crazy situation where he was saying he had something that was going to rival Facebook. So immediately I'm thinking, whoa, this sounds cool, man. And I'm thinking, like, so what he's going to have, this multimedia platform. It's going to be Instagram. It's going to be something like that. And then he started talking about how we were all made up of electrons. So if we could find the right harmonics, we could bypass the smartphone and just interact with each other on this subatomic level. And at that point, I realized he was a mad man, right? But with Schwarzenegger, like, he was the complete opposite. Schwarzenegger was everything you wanted him to be. He was like, you could tell he was a statesman, you could tell. And I had to get 3 questions. So the company we were working for was like a DVD. So it's going to be a straight to DVD thing. So I was interviewing all of these awful celebrities on the red carpet. So I'm in there and and the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit OCD. So I remember stuff. Yeah, I can't remember my wife's birthday, but like, I'll see a guy and go, oh yeah, I remember you. You were like, Dexter killed you in season 3, you know. So, you know, some stuff like that. So all of these Z-list celebrities, again, I'm chatting away to them. So I do all of that. That's going to go onto this DVD. It was a DVD then, and it was going to go to everybody as part of the VIP package. So they said to me, can you have 3 questions? And I was like, yeah, cool. So the first question I was going to say was, you know, how did you get into bodybuilding? All right. And then the second question was, how did you get into acting? And then the third question, this is where I got the kibosh, and you're quite like this, Dwight. I was like, Mr. Schwarzenegger, we've just asked, you know, you got into bodybuilding, and bodybuilding isn't a sport in Austria. They ski or they toboggan, yeah. Yeah. So, but not only did you do it, but you excelled at it. And then you went to America. And I said, when you went to America, you were there, and it was the period of Pacino, and it was De Niro and Hoffman. They're like these, like Woody Allen. They were the guys. They were actors. You came in there like this cartoonish, like muscle-bound character. You know, you couldn't speak English very well. You know, your name was longer than the title of most of the movies you were in. And you excelled at that. And then you became the governor of the 7th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
And then give that dramatic pause. And I went, what the hell are you doing in Birmingham tonight talking to me? And then, like, pretty good question, right?
Yeah.
That was the reason that I got the kibosh. But it was like, while I was doing my research on it, this is what we go back to where you were saying about it being plastic. It was like Schwarzenegger had already said, he was like, nothing is real. And like, so I'm from that generation where America was an amazing, like, it was the land of opportunity for my generation. We looked at it and we were like, this is so cool, Dwight. And then we realized, you know, none of it was true. Like, you look at Kennedy's and you look at Camelot, like, geez, man, is that a Netflix series waiting to happen or what? So it's not just California. It's like, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask you a question on this. Talked about, you watched the movie last night, right? On the plane, right? So there's a movie at the moment. It's in the UK. I don't know if you can get it. You've heard of Gore Vidal, right?
Yeah.
So you remember famously, Gore Vidal had a dialogue. So he had this series of debates in 1969 with William F. Buckley Jr. Yeah. So they did a play, right, in the West End, and Gore Vidal was played by Zachary Quinto. He's the guy who played Spock. So he's a very good actor and unbelievably good. And the other guy was David Harewood, who's, like, check this out. He's an English actor, but he's an English black actor playing a white American, right? So normally the boomer in me would be absolutely raging over that, because I'd be thinking, right, okay, so why are you doing this? Is it rewriting history? What? Dwight, you won't believe this. It was unbelievable. Harewood, literally, like it was funny because I've been ruminating over this. Because have you ever seen Othello with Laurence Olivier?
No.
Right, so it's unbelievable, but it's Laurence Olivier playing a black guy, right?
Right.
And none of us had any problem with that.
Right.
And then I watched Harewood, and Harewood did this thing, right? And it was unreal. Now, the reason I'm saying this is I want your take on this. I watched it, and it was literally like watching any political debate from the last, well, since Trump got in. These guys were so prophetic on everything that's happening in America right now, right? And I know we've been talking about martial arts, but I'd really like your thoughts on how this is all going to work out, because like we could talk about martial arts anytime,
Yeah.
but right now, like for especially for the rest of us in Europe, like it's the bold social experiment that was America or is America. And do you think common sense is going to prevail, or
Yeah.
you know, because yeah,
yes, because see, so they just fired Tucker Carlson, right?
yeah,
They just fired Tucker Carlson. They got rid of Don Lemon, and to me, that's a signal that legacy media are on the way out. Independent media is the future. Okay. And I watched Jordan Peterson interview Riley Gaines.
yeah.
You know who Riley Gaines is?
Yeah, the swimmer.
The swimmer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I watched him interview her. Now, I'm gonna dial back what I said about California, because there are fighters against plasticity in LA. There are.
Yeah.
There always are. It's just that they don't make the news as often as we would like them to make the news. So I think that there's a strong undercurrent in independent media that's preaching, I'll call it a return to the old value systems, a return to an era where common sense and logic prevailed. Okay?
Yeah.
Which we're not seeing today.
No.
A lot of people don't seem to realize and or appreciate that there really is a battle going on for the American mind and the American soul. They don't seem to. I mean, it's not just in America. It's actually going on all around the world. A lot of people are not taking it seriously enough yet, and unfortunately, sometimes the messengers who show up, and this is the way of the world. It's probably been this way from time immemorial. The messengers who show up are imperfect. And because they're imperfect, the message takes longer, or it's more difficult for the message to be disseminated.
Yeah.
But it's there for the people whose minds are tuned into the correct bandwidth. It's like Inosano, right? Inosano's eternal message has been what? Check out as much as you can in order to develop yourself into a real person.
Yeah.
Learn about who you are, what makes you tick, what works for you, and develop it and yourself to the highest level possible. That's his eternal message. And unfortunately, there are people who want to they want to bring that message down to the level of, but Bruce didn't do Kali. What the fuck?
Well, you know what? This is like, Dwight, you're going to freak out, right? So,
Excuse my French.
No, don't worry, I'm Irish, man. Trust me. That was like the second word I ever said. All right, so it's so funny because this movie that I watched last night is called Best of Enemies, right? So it's it's on the West End stage. It's in the Gielgud Theatre. I've gone there quite a few times. One of my favourite theatres, actually. And a lot of people will never get that because they look at me and they think I'm just some shaven-headed, misanthropic individual, right? And I'm like, sorry, but I think you'll find that my Lear's pretty good, but my Javert is very good. So I love musical theatre, right? One day more. Anyway, we'll do that another time. But the movie that I saw last night was so funny because you came out with a line and that was straight from the movie. You won't believe this. So this was in 1968. So William F. Buckley Jr.'s wife turned around. So you got to remember, William F. Buckley was seen as he was the face of the new right wing in America. And it was the start of polarization in America. And Gore Vidal was seen as the face of the new left wing, right? And, Gore Vidal brought everything with it that you would expect. He was a playwright. He was a darling of the New York scene. He was a friend of Andy Warhol's, yada, 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 right? And the crazy thing about this film is, the play, was I came out of it and I was like, shit, I agree with both sides of that argument. So Gore Vidal was there and he was saying, we've never had a level of inequity. I think you might remember this. If you don't, you can just watch it on YouTube. So in 1968 in Chicago, they had what they were doing. They were voting. It was the primaries for who was going to come forward for the Democratic Party, right? So it's a Democratic city. The Democratic mayor decided that he was going to have literally martial law and the National Guard on the streets shooting protesters. And it was really funny because William F. Buckley turned around and he says, oh, you like protest? Oh, you don't like protest. Oh, you only like protest when it agrees with your rhetoric. And because he was so smart, he was advocating, a nuclear family, yada, yada, yada. And he was just, again, the 60s, looking back on it, I wasn't born then, but I look at it and I'm just going, how did you come out of 1945, have these years of prosperity in the 50s, and then it all go mad in the 60s? And it was William F. Buckley's wife turned around and she said, you don't understand. We are actually in a battle for the soul of America right now. And it was really funny because the thing is, she knew that both sides had to come together. Because this is when you're old. When you're younger, politics is the most boring shit on the planet, right? But when you get older, you look at it and go, why would you watch the Kardashians when you can see Joe Biden sniffing some kid's hair, right? And then, right, and you go, this is the best you've got on that side. And then you look at Trump and you go, the best on that side. And then this is going to upset people. Trump, was he a nice guy? No. But guess what? Your economy was doing pretty good. And I think when you look at history, it's going to be a bit like Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was a reprehensible individual, really. But that's what he needed at the time. I don't want to get all philosophical about it, but it's we need revolutionaries when we need a revolution. But as soon as that's over, we don't need that anymore. It's the same as you need the bulldog, right? You only need the bulldog, and then yourself. That's right. You need the bulldog because you think you're going to get robbed, right? And then when you don't get robbed, guess what happens? The bulldog goes away. You don't need him anymore, And it's very, very interesting. It's just when you said it, it was like the Buckley thing was so funny because again, to bring it back to Jeet Kune, it was such a insight into the very, very, and we have it on both sides. You know, you have guys that are on the concept side that go, no, we don't need to look at anything that Bruce did. Well, we actually do, because at the end, I do take issue with guys calling him the founder, because that just sounds like something out of Star Trek. You know what I mean? It was like he was a man, and he was a good man, and he
Right.
like, well, I don't know if he was a good man, but like, he was a visionary when it came to combat.
Yeah.
But he was very, very lucky that he got down in Asante. So what we've got is, we've got on one side, we've got these guys, as I said, I always make a joke about it, you know, guys like Richard Torres, characters like that. You know, it's like, mate, if Bruce, like, I don't know much about Bruce Lee because I never met him, but I'm convinced if he met you, he'd be like, oh man, I'm so disappointed. You actually thought that we were never going to stop, we were never going to progress. And
Right.
it's really funny, because when I look at especially the real dyed in the wood wool adherents of Jeet Kune Do, original Jeet Kune Do, I look at them and they're like the most. It's like they're like religious zealots. It's like, oh, that's the last testament. We don't need any more. And you're like, no. I think you'll find that most, yeah, even Abrahamic faiths, they all have the same thing. Someone else
Right.
is going to come along soon. It was like you said earlier. People will come along and they'll be telling us what to do again.
Yeah. Do you think that they would issue the same argument and say that we are cult worshippers as well, that we're in the Inasano cult?
Well, of course they do. What you got to remember is, you see, the thing is, that by the way is an ad hominem argument, because that, like, nobody ever says that to me to my face, because I'm like, tell you what, mate, all right, show me that dumb tech. You know, I'm a 54-year-old man. Oh, and I went, all right, you grab another 54-year-old man if you want, or grab a younger guy. We're cult worshippers. No, we're not, because the one thing about Guru Dan is, like, he is probably the least. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. He's the least. Trying to think. Think of like somebody who wants to be a leader, right?
Yeah.
So he's a, you know, well, you'll know this. Here's a better example, right? Here's a better example. Dwight, how many times have you gone out to dinner with him?
I couldn't count. I couldn't. It's too many.
Right. Okay. So how many times have you seen him sitting at the head of the table doing a Mick Tully impression, holding court, telling jokes, coming out with anecdotes? But how many times have you seen him where he's just there, quietly listening, letting everybody else do their own thing, and all he wants to do is sit there? I'm sorry, but you know, if he's Jim Jones, he's a pretty shit one, because you know he's the guy. Like,
He's terrible at being an indoctrinator.
Oh, he's the worst. He's the worst, because the thing is, it's his whole thing is right. No, be an individual. And then the other one, this is the one that gets me. It's like, he's a cult guy. Yeah, he wants to keep everyone down. He wants to keep this, you know, a level of servitude. Right, you want a level of servitude, right? So you invite Francis Funk, Arjen Chai, John Jacques Machado, right? Into your inner circle. Omri will you as well. And then what you do is you create, and I'm not using that term lightly either, and you create guys like Rick Young, Terry Barnett, Bob Breen, Rick Fay, Eric Paulson, Greg Nelson. Right, so now you've created guys who physically, in the areas that they are exceptional at, are probably better than you. Right, okay, guess what? You sound like the shittest dictator ever.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You're not doing your job correctly. What I see there is, I see a guy who's going, right, okay, I'm like a conduit to this. I'm going to help you guys. I'm going to, like, you know, I love the way Rick Fay says it. Rick Fay is like, you create a culture. So, like, there's no hierarchy. Like, that's the great thing about Jeet Kune Do, is that there's no belts in Jeet Kune Do. No, there isn't. But if you spend 6 months in there, you'll realize that guy there just holds a little bit more. I don't know. He has a little bit more seniority than you. And it's like it's almost like a self-policing thing, and that's why it's such a grown-up thing as well. I think it's been a boon for us, but I think it's been our downfall as well. I think
Yeah.
if we'd classically, there's no way we can talk without me mentioning the first time we ever met, Dwight, where you came in and you went, "You're Rick Fay." That was it, like 2012. So
Uh-huh.
2012, we're in Seattle, and you went, "You're Rick Fay, so why aren't you acting like Rick Fay?" And a load of the guys were like, "Who's this guy? Why does he think he's talking?" I'm like, "Thank God he's saying this, man."
I said that?
Yeah, you said it, said that because what you were talking about, understanding your value,
Right.
not just as a martial artist, but as a teacher,
Yeah.
yeah, product that you had. And it was really funny because the way you said it was such a cool way. Because Dwight, you came in and you went, "You're Rick Fay. Why don't you act like that?" And everyone was like, "What? And I'm like this. My ears went, because I'm thinking, yeah. Because I'm like this guy to Rick. I said, "Dude, I'm a charismatic guy. I'm like pretty, yeah. If I was that way inclined, I could create a bit of a cult. You know what I mean? Because spend half an hour with me in a class, I'll make you believe, because I'll create that. We'll bang on the AC/DC, get 80s rock going. Yeah, I have kids at jiu-jitsu and they turn around and they're like, "We watched Cobra Kai. You're like Johnny Lawrence." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh, everything after the 80s sucked." And I went, "Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What, you want me to listen to drum and bass? Sorry, mate.
Right.
Even the great reggae came from the 80s. After that, it stopped. Sorry, Ziggy is never going to be Bob. And he's good, but he ain't Bob. And he certainly isn't Peter Tosh. You know what I mean?" So, of
Yeah.
course, when you said it, I was like, "Yeah, finally," because all of that, the whole bit where it's, especially in martial arts, you have to be a starving, or you have to be a starving teacher, or you're doing it because it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything better in the world than making another human being feel good about themselves, and that
Right.
comes at a price because you'll pay for a therapist, you pay for a PT. Guess what? We're doing both of them and
All
better.
those things. All those
Oh,
things. I mean, and yeah, I mean, martial art instructors have to be therapists, and they have to be counselors, they have to be therapists, they have to be moderators, they have to be, all these things that you're not trained for because all you were doing was learning how to kick and punch.
yeah, but you see, like, you were learning how to kick and punch, but you were learning a lot more.
Yeah, right. And and we were talking about Inosano and being a bad dictator. I can remember being annoyed with him because he kept telling people about being, for example, that your primary allegiance is to yourself and your own knowledge. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But you don't say that to a group of people who are students of a student of yours.
Oh no! Well, you see, yeah, but you see, again, This is the thing. Twice. The funny thing is, it's like Guru's under this impression that everyone else is like him. So
Right.
they're a well-balanced human being who is prepared to listen to another person's opinion and go, "Okay," and then he'll be turning around and say, "Well, so why don't you do it?" It's like you're like this. So I won't say who told me the story, but it was the first. A friend of mine told me this story, and it'll be pretty easy to guess because it's one of a few of my teachers. So it's like the only time they ever saw Guru Dan, and they're not even forceful. The word that was used was assertive, right?
Mhm.
And it was he was there, and there was a conversation about good and evil. And the conversation got to the point where Guru Dan was accused of saying, "Your problem is, Dan, you think that evil is just undeveloped good." And Guru argued this, he argued the point and argued the point apparently really, really well, and it was like, no, 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 it is. And I looked, yeah, as soon as I heard that story, I was like, man, if only I wasn't a jaded Irishman, man. That's who I want to be. But deep
Right.
down, I'm like, yeah, deep down, I'm like the Punisher. I'm like, how can I feed this guy into a fucking garbage disposal? Like, because it's that point where you're like, no, if only that was the case. But the
Mhm.
thing is with Guru, It's like he'll just turn around and go, yeah, take ownership of your own training, you know. But again, yeah, why else would you have Yuri Nakamura in your gym? Why would you have Jeff Amada in your gym? Like, as I said, it baffles me that people go, it's a cult. And I'm like, no, dude, what happened was you turned up, you didn't make the cut, and you took the path of least resistance. Admit it. Yeah. Call yourself Grandmaster, and you know what? How about this? I'll even acknowledge that you're a Grandmaster, sort of. You know, I'll call you Grandmaster, but I'll be like, tongue in cheek. Yeah. I know you're full of shit. But yeah, it is fascinating. It's like, I think he's literally, as I said before, he's the only genius I've ever met. That's the God's honest truth. And he's easily the only person I've ever met that really, really, when he sees somebody else do well, he literally revels in it. And not in a way where, well, I got you there. There's none of that BS with him. It's a case of, oh, wow, yeah, my work here is done. And I've seen that happen. You know, I tried to explain it to my wife once. She said, what's it like, you know, when you're talking to her? And I went, well, and you'll like this, it's a pretty cool story. So I lived in Germany for 5.5 years, Dwight. Yeah. So we went, Udo was hosting Guru back in the day, right? So Udo's wonderful individual, isn't he? So we went to a restaurant. So it was a Greek restaurant in Speyer, and it's every time we go there, Guru really likes it, so we go there. And whatever way it worked out, I was sitting next to Guru. I couldn't work that out. So I'm sitting there and we're talking, and he's asking me about, you know, life and work and my children and stuff. And he's just like, you know, he's such a cool guy, you know. So we're chatting away. And then when it comes to order the food, I order my food, but I order it in German. I won't lie, I flirted a little bit with the waitress as well. And Udo's wife was like this. But like, and the thing is, I'm still pretty good now, but ich habe schon lange gewohnt in Deutschland. So ich spreche sehr gute Deutsch, yeah. So I even speak with an accent because I only stayed in the same place. So of course, Guru's like, and I always say to Terry Barnett, he calls me Mike. And as I always say, he knew Bruce Lee, and he almost gets my name right. So yeah, but because he called Terry Tony for about 5 years. Terry didn't have the heart to tell Guru that his name was actually Terry. So anyway, Guru starts asking me, he goes, you speak German? And I was like, yeah. And he said, how did you learn? And well, it was at school. And I went, no, I lived here. And I said, I never spoke German when I came here. And Guru's like, and why? And I went, Guru, you think I'm going to spend 5.5 years in a country and not speak? I can't spend 5.5 minutes with someone and not speak. So there's no way that, right? And then we started talking about linguistics and stuff. So I explained that I didn't speak English for the first 5 years of my life. So I spoke Gaelic in Ireland. And he was like, what? And then obviously he was interested in Gaelic, and I was explaining the etymology of the language and stuff. And he was like, oh. And then it was like, what, you work as a drywaller? And I went, Guru, I make the world a more beautiful place, one wall at a time. I said, you know, who else can say that? And he was like, oh, that's really cool. But again, it was like, it was funny because I told my wife, it was like, he was way more interested in me. And yes. I wanted to ask him all these questions about Bruce Lee and everything. And that's the beauty of the guy.
Yeah.
He's fascinated by other people.
That's the problem. He has too well absorbed the concept of being your own person. You see, if you were touched by Bruce Lee, how dare you go beyond him? Right? It's Bruce Lee. For the rest of your life, you are supposed to operate in the shadow and under the umbrella that Bruce Lee bestowed upon you.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he took one of Bruce Lee's most important lessons and became that lesson, which is to be yourself and develop yourself beyond the parameters that could have been imposed on you by anything or anyone else. That's exactly what Bruce Lee did. When I see people who are Bruce Lee descendants, and I see them conforming in the way they operate in the JKD world, I ask myself, at what point did Bruce Lee conform? At what point did Bruce Lee say, well, so for example, the Big Boss is his first break, right, into the Hong Kong film world. So did he accept the style of fighting, the choreography that they wanted to impose on him? No, he's like, no. So they call Raymond Chow back in Hong Kong and they go, look, this Lee Siu Lung's given us trouble. He wants to change how we're fighting and what have you. And thank God Raymond Chow says, let him do it his way.
Exactly.
Because you and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't that. So Bruce Lee never conformed.
No. Well, you see, it's that cult mentality that comes with martial arts, right? So, like, again, it's the real misnomer, and it's the absolute paradox that comes with the whole Santo, it's a cult thing, because it's like, if you tried any of that shit with him, and go, oh, master, he'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What? As I said, the only time, it's really funny because, well, you'll know this, Dwight. So when you're on the program and you go to an instructor camp, and there's every now and again you see a little flash of Guru, where, because when he's just doing a public seminar, it's just Daniel Santo, right? It's like, guys, hopefully this will be the start. Most of us are there and we just want to hang out with him for 4 hours, right? But then when you do the instructor camp, I remember the first time I ever went, and it was really funny because a couple of friends of mine, Neil McLeod and Rachel McLeod, they were like, Mick, just switch on. And I was like, what? And they went, you got to have your best day today. And I went, really? And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And I smashed it, and Guru was like, and then there was a couple of guys there that you could see they just haven't put the time in. So like, maybe teaching, and I'm not knocking them at all, because they just weren't, they weren't sharp. Yeah, right. That's what. And you could see Guru was like, okay, let's go again. And it was the only time I ever saw him where I was like, right, okay.
Yeah.
Now I understand why everyone got it, because that was the first time that I'd actually seen, but it's like the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, where it was like, okay, this is a really lovely guy, and he's very, very self-effacing, and he's wonderful. Yeah. But there will be a point where we go, no, I think you're better than that.
Okay. See, Mick, you're touching on something there. I think here's what a lot of people don't seem to be aware of. If we do it in decades, right? If we do it in decades, so Bruce Lee left the U.S. in what, 70 or 71? Okay.
Yeah.
So Inosanto has a generation of students from the 70s into the 80s. Then he's got a generation of students 80s into the 90s. Another generation in the 90s into the 2000s.
Yeah.
So if you are with him now for the past 15 years, there is so much that you missed, right? That it unfortunately, you're not able to be old school because you weren't there. But exactly. I think that a lot of these people should check out as much old school as they could. And when they're in front of him, go old school.
Oh, 100%. I Dwight, you've hit the nail on the head, bro. So literally, you know, one of the classic things you ever get tested on, right? Now take, cross up, cross, now take, cross up, not cross up, cross, mid front hand barrier, trap, comes out that, right? And literally the only thing missing from mine was, what? That was literally the only thing I didn't do. I made everything else look like it. And and it I've had this before, because, you know, Rick Fay, we've talked about this before, you know, because we've lost a lot of JKD guys into jiu-jitsu and they've never come back, right? I truly believe that if you're young enough and able to, it's sort of like, from my generation, definitely, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is like the Thai test that Guru Dan used to have for all of his instructors. If you're under 40, you had to do the Thai test. Why? It just shows a bit of metal. It just shows you've done. Yeah, it just shows you're able to do it. And you know, I always love, and I'm going to quote Rick Fay on this. Rick Fay was saying, you know, for Guru Dan, who's supposedly this. By the way, this isn't the Rick part, right? You know, this is me. You know, supposedly some like cultish leader, right? This is the Rick Fay part. Rick was like, the thing with Guru, he says, I know guys, I know Mr. Ino Santo, because he always calls him Mr. Ino Santo, doesn't he, Rick? And he says, I know Mr. Ino Santo well. He goes, and the one thing I know about Mr. Ino Santo is Mr. Ino Santo always likes to be led by somebody. He always likes to have somebody to look up to. He said, so, you know, he got Bruce Lee. He said he's this very charismatic individual, physically imposing specimen, you know, very good at what he did. And then Bruce went away. He goes, what did Mr. Ino Santo do? He met Arjun Chai. And I truly believe, this is the thing, I really believe this. Arjun Chai's introduction into Jeet Kune Do was where it all went. That way. Because what you had was, you had Chai turning up and he's going, no, sir, you are terrible. He's told me several times, sir, you are terrible. You sit like, you hit like my sister, sir. And I'm like, yes, sir. You know, it's like, your elbows, they are terrible, sir. Like all of this. But you need somebody like that. Now that's the guy who keeps you in line. It's like, you know, with the AI question that you had earlier. So what's the role in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Jeet Kune Do? Reality. Reality. So you train. I had it tonight. I had to put. I put the hammer on that. I don't put the hammer on many people in jiu-jitsu. Like normally when the new guys come in, I'll roll with them and I say, take it easy. And I had one guy today, and he's my age, and he's doing all of this shaking thing. And I was like, I made a joke of it. I said, dude, I didn't realize Michael J. Fox did jiu-jitsu. I know that's a bad joke. I shouldn't say that, right? So, of course, he's doing all of this. And I went, mate, too much adrenaline. Just chill out. Let's play. We'll go. And then we've got two Irish brothers there, and they want to fight. One of them has literally done 3 months of training. And I'll tell you something. If I didn't have jiu-jitsu, he'd be a handful. Like, because I've got jiu-jitsu, I'm just smarter than him, so I'll just beat the crap out of him. But he had 3 months of training versus my 39 years. And you know what? If I didn't keep everything sharp, he'd get the hammer on me. And that's why, for me, I think jiu-jitsu is good. But that's only for me. Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing with the Ino Santo method, is that my way is not your way. You know, and like the crack is, Guru Dan encapsulates all of the really cool stuff that a lot of these original guys think that, like, they come out with platitudes, they come out with bullshit. They're saying stuff that sounds good, but they're not living it, right? Guru, what's he doing? Like Rick, I'm gonna, this is a story. I know Rick Young won't mind me saying this. Rick Young went over to spend a week with Guru, and his deal was, I'm going to just match Guru for the whole week. I'm gonna follow him for the whole week on his itinerary, jump into all the classes that he does, that he teaches, he trains in, no problem. He got to the third day, and Rick told me, he goes, I had to go to bed. He goes, I got to 7 o'clock, and he said, I just don't know where the guy gets the energy from. And we were like, whoa.
Okay. And what year was that?
Oh, that was 2 years ago. 3 years. No, it was before COVID. So maybe
Okay. So we were talking about Ron Goldstein and I were talking about the same thing last week because
Right.
he let's see. So we got there on Wednesday. So we went to the 10:30 a.m. Thursday class. So he teaches 10:30 to noon. Camp is noon until 4, and then class starts again at 5. You know
Wow.
what I mean? Right? Then I think there was there a Friday morning class too. Maybe there isn't a Friday morning class. So then it's just camp from 12 until 4. And then there's evening classes from 5 until about 7, if I get it right. Then there's a Saturday morning class, and then camp, and he's doing it all
Oh.
at almost 87.
Well, it's that, like it's the crazy stuff, like doing rounds with Omri and then like training with Hickson or training with Jean
Yeah.
Jacques.
Yeah.
And you're like, he's not my BJJ professor, he's my professor's professor. Braulio, a steamer. Me and Braulio, like, he's a legend, right? The Braulio, I said to Braulio, I said, Guru Dan. And he went, he's legit. And I went, yeah. And he went, no. He said, Mick, at jiu-jitsu, he said his spider guard is world class. And I use this example all the time because Guru famously started at 59 years of age.
Right.
Famously started at 59 years of age. I know 29-year-old guys who come in, they do my no-gi class, and they're, I'm too old for this. And I'm like, dude, my teacher started when he was 30 years older than you. You have no excuse. And I think that's like the recurring message all the time with Guru Dani is like he leads by example. And if you've got any level of authenticity about you, you're like, I want some of that. And like that's me down to a T. I wouldn't follow anybody. I said that to I've said that to Terry loads of times. I'm like, I wouldn't follow anyone, but when I know someone's way better than me, I will do. And that, and the mad thing is, it's like when I asked you earlier about, why you got into this. I got into this because I needed this Mr. Miyagi figure. I had a horrendous childhood. I was beaten horrifically at school, beaten horrifically at home. So I was like, how can I get out of this? And then, I remember, I said it to Tell, I remember reading about Terry and Bob and Rick, and I was going to train with them. And then I didn't start training them until I was 30. But I'd done all of my karate, I'd done all my Thai boxing over in Germany, did some Wing Chun over in Germany as well. And then by the time I got into like JKD, I still needed that role model, needed that figure.
Yeah.
And then Terry said, the problem is, man, he goes, you don't need it now. He goes, the problem is, dude, you're it now. And I was like, what? And then, like, I always say this, it's like you were saying about people saying to you, it was my training that got me there. And the thing is, it's like, I'm literally your guy. I'm your, you need a better class of hero, dude. You know what I mean? And they're like, no, but you're Nick, you're you. And I'm like, yeah. And I've got a load of shit wrong with me. My wife famously says this all the time, that if we won the lottery, that she'd have me psychoanalyzed, because we need the lottery money to be able to put me back together for all the coping mechanisms and everything I've put.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the one thing about martial arts, man. For me, it's been my absolute, and I really mean this, it has saved me.
Yeah. I think that I like when I hear other people's origin stories for martial art, like I wish that I had a sexier story other than I saw Bruce Lee in Big Boss and I was like, that's it. That's how I want to move. I want to be
that's
like,
a cool story.
like that, but one thing that I've come to realize is that it is the resourceful, independent-minded renegade aspect. That's the thing, right? So I'm pretty quiet in my resourcefulness. You know, I'm not boisterous with it at all. And you know how in some of the punditry circles you'll hear somebody say, so there's an outfit and they've got like 4 main podcasters, and somebody will say, well, I came for podcaster A, but I stayed for podcaster C.
Yeah.
I had already, before I went out to LA in 83, everything that I had seen for maybe 7 years pointed to Inosano as the guy. He was the go-to guy, you know? So it wasn't for me, came for Bruce, stayed for Dan, right? It was came to Dan because of Bruce.
Yeah.
Right. So there was, I wasn't looking to go anywhere else. I think with other people, it came for Bruce, didn't find Dan to be enough of a clone of Bruce, so looked elsewhere.
Yeah. You've hit the net. That's why the JKD Rebel. You see, it's like sometimes for some people, being themselves isn't enough.
Right.
And I know that sounds really, really cosmic, but it's the truth. It's like, I've reconciled myself a long time ago, who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Do I like who I am? Hell yeah. I love who I am. Now this is sort of like full disclosure time. A few years ago, I thought I was going to really make it, podcasts were doing great, the guy that I do the podcast with, he had a great show over here called Mind Body Kick-Ass Moves. We're making connections. We're doing some really, really cool stuff. And then anxiety hit me, and it was physical anxiety from jiu-jitsu. I picked up a neck injury. My left arm went numb. I thought, oh man, I'm going to be that cautionary tale. Like the guy, like Jim Fix. Do you remember the jogger, Jim Fix?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jim Fix is the jogger, and then he dies at 50. And they're like, I'll tell you that jogging's a load of bullshit, man. Look at that Jim Fix, he died. So I didn't want to be the guy that stroked out at 50. And when I went to see my doctor, I went to see my doctor, and then I went to see my osteopath, Rosie Sexton, who's just an absolute darling. She actually fought in the UFC. She was the first English woman to ever fight in the UFC. She's got a PhD. She's got 2 PhDs. She's the smartest person I know. Not man or woman, smartest person I know. And she's unreal. And she really helped with my anxiety. And she said, the problem is, Mick, because you've got this persona of you being you,
right?
Guess what? Sometimes I've got to switch that off a little bit. And I was like, I've been doing it for 48 years. I've been faking it till I make it. I said, I can't switch it off now. And she went, no, let me explain. We'll do this. And we've got through some stuff. And we really got to the bare bones of it. And it was the whole, right, so what's the problem? And my problem was the fact that, and I'm not saying I was going to be really successful, but my problem was once I got into touching distance, it started to look like I was going to do well. It really shit me up, scared me. And I was like, right. And it isn't like there's any skeletons in my closet or anything. It was just the whole, my life's going to change. Because we had some cool stuff coming up, deal with Amazon, the whole 9 yards. There was some good stuff coming in. And then, Rosie said to me, so what stresses you out? And she went, make a list. So I made a list, and she went, right, get rid of 4 of them. And that was it. I got rid of them. And one of them was, as I said, my dear friend Ant McGinley. I love him. We were doing podcasts, but it was just like, we need to do more. And you know yourself, when this isn't fun, Dwight, it's no fun at all. It's just drama and stress. And then the problem is, you'll know this yourself now. Now there's there's an expectation that you have now. What are you, you're 248, 249 shows in?
262.
Wow. Well done, man. Well done. But the thing is now, it's like Friday night, if you're not doing any dialogues, man, where's Dwight?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
I want to go out. I'm going to have a date. No. Dwight's part of it. And then obviously, because you're a smart guy, you know that for some people, this is just watching some nonsense. But for other people, like that scoundrel Terry Valor, can't believe it's taken this long for me to mention him. But that Terry Valor is like a vampire. That guy he's straight on this. So I'm hoping you're here today, Tal. I love Terry.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like, you know, you're fulfilling a role in people's life.
Right.
And like there's the expectations that come with that. And I came out with a line recently. We were talking, this was at jiu-jitsu, and I went, everyone wants to be a leader in life until it's time to lead. And then guess what? Everyone wants to be a fucking blue belt then, mate. That's the one. They all want to be a blue belt then. It's a strange. The old martial arts game is a very, very strange situation. It's very, very strange, man. I was going to ask you, right, because I know time's getting on. I'm going to ask you one question, right? So, Dwight, if there was anybody, right, that you could train with, like, who would it be, and why would you want to do it?
Ben Largusa.
Ooh, good call. Good call. And why?
Ben Largusa. I'm going to tell you something, Mick. You see all the people that talk shit about Kali and Kali's not JKD and whatever? They don't know what the hell they're talking about. There is nothing that is more JKD than Kali. Okay? There is nothing, right? Yeah. And the little that I have heard about Largusa and Largusa's spirituality, and then, you know, which I imagine is somewhat descended from Floro Villabril and passed on to people like Lucky Lukai, right? You know, Cass Magnus said to me once that, I'll paraphrase, but it's that Lucky Lukai taught him how to be a man. And I thought, man, what, right? Because Cass spent a lot of time with the old timers, the old Kali men, right? You know, and so just the, you know, that Largusa is the one that took the Villabril stuff and organized it into a system.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and it wasn't just the physical system. There's a spiritual aspect to it as well. And, you know, so I think there's just something, and it might, you know what, it might just be that in March of 1976, the issue of Oriental Fighting Arts, which had a cover story on Inasano, but then there was a story about Ben Largusa and Kali. I think that somehow the Kali article was submerged into my mind. And so when I saw that Inasano was teaching Kali at CMAA, it didn't bother me. I was going there as a Jeet Kune guy or a Jeet Kune wannabe, but it didn't bother me that, and I think it's because somehow that Largusa article also had an impact on me.
Yeah.
You know, and so I feel honored anytime that Inasano calls me up to demonstrate the numerata and refers to me as old school and he refers to me as classically trained. And the thing is, Mick, I never trained at a single Villabril Largusa seminar or anything. I trained from watching a video of Cas Magda. That's the extent of my Villabril Largusa training.
But you see, this is the thing, like Dwight, this is the thing. It's like you mentioned earlier when we were talking about, young guys are learning the art. Right. If we are artists, right, which we are, if we want to perpetuate like the beauty of the art, why the hell should we care what the delivery system was? So it was a VHS in your case. It's YouTube now. Like if props are paid, so if credit is paid to the right people, I don't care how it comes. Like this is quite a funny anecdote. I was rolling with a couple of the young guys today, and I was rolling with them. And as we're rolling, I won't lie to you, I'm brutal for shit talking when we do jiu-jitsu. So I do loads of this. Oh, you're that guy. Oh, the armbar. Oh, right. So all you need to do is step over now, right? Okay, yeah. And then, well, I was going to do that, and the kids go, oh, I was going to do that. And I'm like, oh, so you've been watching YouTube again? I always do that with the guys when they start trying to do some crazy stuff. And then I always go, you got to remember, guys, I'm an old guy in a young man's sport, still kicking ass. So how is that happening? And then I said, stay off YouTube. And I said, yeah, especially with those girls and stuff. And they start laughing and going on. And they go, but like, for your point, it's like, but Dwight, you are classically trained because, you've got that classical mindset. I'm gonna name check a guy who just, David Hatch. When I see the guy move, I'm like, whoa. Because he doesn't look like a martial artist. I mean that in the nicest possible way. But you see him move, and then the guy's like an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, man, yeah. And what you'll get is people turn around and they'll look at it and go, well, you don't look like a martial artist. And you go, yeah, but that's a very, very important role. Because at the moment we're dead lucky. Because what we've got is we've got the physical guy who can do it, the historian, the custodian of it, because that's all Danilo Santo. But I don't know about you, Dwight. I hope we have him for another 20 years. But guess what? One man is not going to be able to carry that role afterwards. Not one man alone. And we'll need every single person to be able to do it. It's like Rick Fay used to always say, you need to have the ass kicker in the gym. Because me and him we've always had this. And I really mean this, because I love Rick like a father. He's been a huge father figure to me. And Rick said Rick, I always say to him, everything you said came true. Because when we first met, he goes, oh, you're never going to get old, are you, Mick? You're always going to be able to kick ass. And I'm like, yeah. And then he said, I remember I got to 50 and I felt like the shot had gone. I didn't have that shot anymore. And it never going to happen to me. I got to 52 and I was like, yeah, the shot isn't where it used to be, Rick. And he goes, it's like putting your socks on that. And I go, well, if I have enough time, I'm okay and stuff like that. And I was like, everything, Rick. And Rick used to say to me, he goes, there'll come a point where you have to realise, first of all, if you're teaching, you shouldn't be the ass kicker. That isn't your job, But unfortunately, in the city that I live in, Dwight, that is a very important job. I've famously got a line about one-to-ones, especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Coventry, where I live. It's a 16-minute private lesson, yeah? The first 40 minutes, I have to kick the shit out of this guy to just basically prove to him that I've got something to teach him.
Right.
And it's like when people say, oh, you don't teach many one-to-ones, and I'm like, I make a lot more easier money. You know what I mean? It's like you got this young guy and you have to batter him. And then but let's go again. And again, I'm getting to the point now, like in my kids' jiu-jitsu class, I got rid of the beard just before Christmas. Because a 5-year-old kid starts telling me about some PlayStation or something. And I turned around to his mum and I said, what's he on about? And she went, he's convinced that you're Santa Claus. And I went, what? And I said, he went into school and said, Santa Claus teaches me jiu-jitsu. And I'm like this, I'm looking at this 5-year-old kid and I'm thinking, I'd kick your ass, man. Another 11 years on the clock, mate. Yeah, because I don't know about you, Dwight. I want to ask you this, right? This will be my last question to you now, right?
Uh,
Like, famously, when you do martial arts, it's a bit delusional, right? Yeah, we yeah, a little bit, right? So
okay.
you, Dwight, right now. So Dwight D was. I'm going to put this to you. How old do you feel between here?
I'm 18.
My man, that's exactly right. Yeah, I always say I'm never going to be older than Jim Morrison. Yeah, so
Mm,
it's like 27, no more. Mama
yeah,
Cass, 27. Yeah, I'll never get that. Right now, I feel about 25,
yeah,
and I know that all of that comes from just martial arts. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that whole thing. It's famously been said about Guru Dan that he's got like this childlike
hmm,
attitude towards everything, that everything is, if it's not new, he looks
yeah,
at it with a child's mentality. And I am like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I look at stuff now and I'm like, man, yeah, jiu-jitsu tonight, I was letting guys do stuff and I was like, I just needed to see where you were going to go with this.
yeah.
And my shoulders like this, and I'm like, I hope my shoulder can still take this, but it's so cool. I need to let you do it, see what's going on. But
Right.
yeah, that's my one take away from all of this is it truly is. It's the fountain of youth, man.
Hmm.
Like the body will go, but it's like, have you ever seen the TV series Black Mirror?
Yeah,
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 martial arts is San Junipero, man. Up here we're going to be just banging out rock music till the
yeah.
day I, you
I
know
mean,
what I mean?
if I could find the way, right, to marry the two, right. But see, my brain and my mind, um, when I was younger, were older than my body, right.
Yeah,
And now it's kind of reversing, right. Because yeah, I I've been in Miami for this year. Let's see, June will be 37 years,
wow.
right? And I still feel like I only just got here. Yeah.
That can't be a bad thing.
Yeah. There's no, when I think about those numbers, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, no.
It really doesn't. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so, sometimes I go, well, shoot, Dwight, if that's how your brain works about stuff, what have you been doing all this time?
Yeah,
you
you
know?
see, yeah, but you see the thing is, right? It's like you just hit on something there. When you're younger, you're in this rush to be more mature.
Hmm.
Yeah, and name your cliche. You want to be taken seriously by your peers. I don't know. You want, Greek tragedy. You need to kill your father to become the man. All of that nonsense, right? And then as you get older, you're like, no, no. If anything, I want to go the other way. And it's like, for me, it's quite galling because the body's giving up a little bit. It doesn't want to do what it used to do. Everything like that. But like the mindset, geez, man, it's like you think about it this way, like Dwight, you live in Miami, right? Imagine how awful would it be if you got complacent that you lived in Miami. Come on, it's like, sorry, man. Crockett and Tubbs used to live there, man. Dexter, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
showing my age here, right, on the Crockett and Tubbs thing, but it's like, yeah, complacency is everything. This is, but like, I don't know about you. This is a good place to wind up. It's like 10 past 1 here, but
Sorry,
the
man.
complacency. This is the one thing that, like, and for me anyway, this is why I'd like to look at this. The one greatest lesson I think that we've learned from Danilo Santo is complacency is very, very bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
surround yourself by people that inspire you. Be the at least the best version of you can be. But
Hmm.
more importantly, it's like, and I have to dial it back a little bit. when I first started teaching Jeet Kune, there was quite a few guys that I know quite well, and they're good guys, and they're lovely guys. And I'm going to come out with the classic but, because you know when someone says but, you know what comes out of a but? Normally shit, right? So the thing is, when I say but, they go, oh, they're right. So Jeet Kune Do's got 27 different component arts in it. How can you be good at 27 different things? And I'm like, first of all, I never said I was. I'm good at about 3 of them, but the crossover between most of them is that there's a Chinese curry, there's an Indian curry, there's a Pakistani curry, there's a Jamaican curry. You can get an English curry now. There's that combination, right? So you got that, and they were like, yeah, but 27 different arts, and I always say I've never met anyone that got dumber because he read 27 different books. And I went, and the real irony of it all is the one thing that you do, you're really shit at. You know what I mean? I'm really good at 3 things. That's not bad. Most people lead a life of mediocrity. Right. You know what I mean? And like, yeah. Let's put it this way. I'm a way better Mick Tully. Ever since I put on those pair of pajamas doing karate back in the days, dreaming of, oh God, if I could only meet Danny Santo. Oh man, if I could meet Terry Barnett, wouldn't it be so cool? And the next thing you know, like, these guys know who I am. With Terry, with Rick, you know, not Bob, Rick Young, them, Phil Norman, them, Rick Fay. Not only they're my friends. Yeah. I can't work that shit out. I honestly, because I'm like, yeah, I'm a charismatic individual, but I'm full of shit most of the time. And I'm like, have you not seen through this? And they're like, yeah, we know you're full of shit, but we like you anyway. You turn up training, you're all right. But that's the one. Like, as I said, and you know, if I'd have just been complacent and accepted, you know, that like scared and timid soul, quoting my man Teddy here, but that scared, timid soul who wouldn't step into the arena, I wouldn't be talking to you now, Dwight.
Right.
You know, yeah. I wouldn't have traveled the world. And again, financially, I've done okay. Am I like Zuckerberg level? No. But when it comes to happiness, man, I'm Jeff Bezos level shit there.
There you go.
You know, when it comes to just knowing who I am, accepting who I am. And the crack is, it can all be traced back to Ino Santo, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, because he was a guy I dreamed about meeting one day.
Yeah.
And that, again, history is going to be kind to him. And there's a lot of guys that aren't, you know. There's a lot of guys, especially in that whole movement. And as I said, I always make it an effort to say this. You know, Sifu Taki, Andy Kimura, I've never seen anything but great stuff. My good friend Martin O'Neill's one of their guys. Martin's like such a nice guy, and it's like they're cool, but those guys never say they're anything but what they are. So they're super authentic on that. And we only do this, and then that's it, that's us. And you go, great. And then you got these guys doing the pick and mixing. It's always like I always have to mention the revisionist history guys, and I'm not shit talking him, but it's guys like Richard Torres, right? So you've got 4 pairs of Bruce Lee's original socks. Wow, that makes you an expert, you know? It's like, no, that makes you a scary fanboy, mate. That makes you a Netflix 3-part series in my eyes. You know, we just haven't found the bodies yet. I'm only joking, but hey, who knows? Those Iraqis, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. On that note, Mick, go get some sleep. You probably got to do jiu-jitsu again tomorrow.
But believe it or not, I'm teaching my first class at 10:30, and then I'm teaching my next class at 11:30, and then myself and my wife, oh dude, we're going to be walking around a garden centre. I'm like middle class. Yeah, I'll be wearing Crocs and everything, man. People will look at me and they go, "Who's this old guy, man? He smells of cough syrup." You know what I mean? It's so terrible. But yeah, Dwight, it's been wonderful to speak to you, and I'd just like to say, if Richard Torres is watching, what colour is the boathouse in Hereford? And it's not even Hereford, it's Hereford. Yeah, but I had to get that one in. But But Dwight, as always, it's just been great to see you. Yeah, and like, mate, honestly, I really mean this. I thought I had a pretty good Jeet Kune podcast, but you are the man. Like the people you get in, they're so interested, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You know, you're just so open and allow people to just do their thing. And you know, man, you've had all guys from different sides, and you know,
except and Jason Ball mentioned it. Terry Barnett.
Well, don't be upset because Terry Barnett's never done one for me either. Terry is the man. Trust me. I really mean this, right? And this will be. I'm gonna sign off on this. Terry Barnett and his wife have every single attribute that I love about humanity. They're just wonderful, caring, loving people. Like it sounds really cliche when I say this, right? Terry was the third person I rang after my father passed away, and when I started crying on the phone, he said to me, and it was so cool because he went, "If you didn't start crying, Mick, I'd be upset." He goes, "I'd be worried about you if you didn't cry." And I ring Terry on Father's Day, and I ring him and I go, "Tell, I know you're only like you're 10 years older than me, but guess what? Because that you're that now."
Yeah.
And he's just such a wonderful human being. If you can get him, like it would be a joy, because he's just, oh man, definitely do. In fact, what I'll do is I'll message him tomorrow. Okay. But Terry is the most, like, I'll tell you something. He's a really accomplished musician as well. He's a really, oh yeah, 2 albums. Yeah, he's a very, very, multi-instrumentalist.
Wow.
Terry's the coolest. Literally, he's the coolest guy I know. He's been a savior to me.
Yeah,
and he's
just that. I drummed as much last week as I trained on the floor at the Inasano Academy.
Really? We'll quit on this one. How was Michael Dubin, man? Because that guy can drum, I'll tell you.
He showed up. I think he showed up on Thursday. So I think he showed up on. There was a class that I wasn't participating in, so he played, I played, Inasano played. But Monday morning, Michael Dubin was there. Alex Acuna was there.
I saw this on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. Alex Acuna was there. So we're all playing. And then this younger kid, and he's just a blue belt in the Kali ranking system. So I'm like, oh, okay. So he starts playing. And I'm like, oh, he must just be some little kid that Alex has coached. Turns out it's Euro Zambrano, who plays for Stevie Wonder.
No way. Hey, and you tell me, you're gonna be guys like that playing golf? It ain't gonna happen. You know, it isn't gonna happen. But Dwight, man, much love, brother. As I say,
same here.
It's what they do now.
Yeah, you're one of the cool kids. All right, Mick, hey, such a pleasure, man.
Big love always. God bless.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. All right. The inimitable Mick Tully. All right, folks, that was episode 263 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. So you guys know the deal. Go ahead and comment. Mick will be on when he's got the time. We'll take a look at comments, see if there's anything that we need to respond to. Give me a sec here. All right. Okay. So I mentioned this at the start. You know what? I'm not going to go through this again. I mentioned it at the start. You guys can rewind back to the start of this stuff. Okay, so I'll let you know during the week who will be on next Friday. I just got to confirm everything over the weekend with all the upcoming interview partners. Okay, so everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me, and stay safe. Talk soon. Take care.